Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jeremy Schumacher. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm the Jer in Wellness with Jer. Thanks for stopping by and checking out my channel. I'm trying to record from home today in my basement, hence Star Wars Lord of the Rings posters. There might be a dog or two that runs through, or a child. We'll see. Um, I got new lighting setups, and so I'm keep messing with where I want to record. So back with another song review. This isn't a song that's like 7 months old. I thought it was a new song. That's how out of touch I am. This is why I need you to drop in the comments and give me a song to review, because apparently I'm just very not hip, which is not news to me. That's a thing that I was aware of, but I thought this was a new song because I keep hearing it on the radio. Milwaukee radio is really weird because they just play things to death. My hatred of Pearl Jam is based purely on growing up in Milwaukee and Pearl Jam just being overplayed all the time. Anyway, so I don't listen to the radio that much. I've heard the song a bunch recently, and I was like, oh, I should do a review because it's basically about ADHD. So we're going to talk about ADHD in the context of the song Running Out of Time by Paramore. I don't know much about Paramore. They're from Tennessee. So, okay. That's all I got. Haley Williams did a song with Eminem. That's the lead singer. And I think she said something about like fuck fascists, but which is a sentiment we can all get behind. I'm terrible at intros. Here's Paramore, Running Out of Time. I've got the lyrics video up, and we're going to talk about what's going on in the song.
Said I was gonna take some flowers to my neighbor, but I ran out of time. Didn't wanna show up to the party empty-handed, but I ran out of time. Said I walked the dog a little further than the driveway tonight, the extra mile. Thought I sent a card with my condolences, but damn, I just ran out of time. Intentions only get you so far. What if I'm just a selfish prick? No regard. I'm always running out of time. I'm always running out of time.
Okay. That's why I don't review popular songs, because I never think they're very good. All right, running out of time. So one of the things that I like to talk about a lot is neurodivergence. I have ADHD. I see a lot of clients who have ADHD. I go and give talks about things like neurodivergence because it's one of, I don't want to say the most misunderstood diagnoses out there. It's one of those things that, like, the way it got diagnosed is super backwards. I've done a video on ADHD before. You can check that out if you would like, where I basically just lay out like the foundation of the diagnosis that is incorrect and why it's a bad diagnosis in the way that like the DSM, which is our diagnostic manual, talks about it, because it really misses the point. The diagnosis for ADHD is all written about what somebody who sees somebody who's neurodivergent deals with, not what the person who is neurodivergent is dealing with. So again, I'm a big fan of like neurodivergence as a movement, as a language. That wording that we use to basically say like some people have different brain setups is good. I don't love neurotypical as kind of like the point counterpoint, but again, on a spectrum, as opposed to like that black or white thinking, I think it's good. So I talk about ADHD a lot. So when I hear a song like this and I'm like, oh, running out of time, I had all these good intentions, but didn't get things done, that yells ADHD to me. Now, all people deal with running out of time, right? Like, this isn't just the thing that means you have ADHD. If you are late often, it doesn't mean that you, it's one of those things that we want to be careful of with neurodivergence, where we're trying to not dismiss somebody who's struggling to say like, oh, well, everybody deals with that. I'm late sometimes, so I don't have ADHD, blah, blah, blah. Back in my day, we didn't have neurodivergence. We just had curio cabinets full of collectible plates that no one could touch and rearrange. I saw that on TikTok the other day. That was the best take on autism back in the day that I've seen in a while. But again, so we don't want to dismiss these things, but I think it's important to talk about these things. So with ADHD specifically, which is not inherently what the song's about, but that's how I'm interpreting it. It's one of those things where having good motivation, having good intention comes up a lot. And people who are neurodivergent deal with a lot of shame because they're running late or they have the best intentions. They set 6 reminders on their phone. They do all these different things, and they're struggling to still get it done because neurodivergence, ADHD, is specifically a type of neurodivergence that the brain struggles with regulation. So ADHD is about dysregulation. And one of the things that can get dysregulated is time management. So something like, I'm going to go to this party. I want to get flowers, or I want to pick up a gift so I don't show up empty handed. I'm going to leave 15 minutes early so that I can go and get it, and it's fine. And it's one of those things where maybe stopping at the store to get flowers or a gift isn't exciting in and of itself. So the dopamine threshold that someone needs to hit. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that helps take thoughts and turn them into actions. The brain has to use the neurotransmitters to communicate to the part of the body to say, get up, go outside, get in your car, get on public transportation, and go get this gift. So there are all these different neurotransmitters that have to take that idea, I need to go get a gift, and turn it into an action of actually doing it. And one of the things that happens with ADHD is that neurotransmitter is dysregulated. So sometimes you have a lot, you're super hyper focused. Sometimes you don't have enough, and doing basic things like getting out of bed can be really hard. So I think when I hear the song, I'm like, oh yeah, like that's executive functioning dysregulation, like executive functioning, time management, being able to see and plan and take past examples and filter them into making a plan for the future. All that's executive functioning. That's something that is dependent on the frontal cortex in your brain, and it's one of those things that gets dysregulated when you're neurodivergent. So it's hard to kind of navigate all those steps from thought into action, especially if you have low dopamine or something like that. So one of the other things that jumped out at me in the song is talking about taking the dog for a walk, and that's something that I recommend often. I love dogs. As I mentioned, one might run through the video here because they hate being away from me, so they're always following me around when I'm in my house. We have rescue dogs. We call them Velcro dogs because they're just always by your hip. So the big dog's on the couch behind me. It's one of those things where I got distracted while I was trying to make my point about dogs. There we go. So it's one of those things where animals have a less complex brain than us. Not throwing shade, just facts and science. The frontal cortex, where we do a lot of these different things around navigating time management and setting things up to be successful, planning into the future, taking past events into account. It's one of those things where most mammals don't have as big of a frontal cortex as we do. So dogs, for example, don't. And so they're going to have more of that like lizard brain, that brainstem part of the brain that we have. So it's very much circadian rhythms and instinctual type things for a dog. So taking dog for an exercise, I'm not going to say the word because my dog's in the room and it'll freak out if I use the word. But saying something like I was going to walk the dog a little bit further. I like to use animals. I like to use pets, especially dogs, as a way to sort of regulate and provide some structure in your life. If you train your animal to go for an exercise at the same time every day, because their brain is less complex, they're not worried about like, did I pay the bills? Or what if my neighbor sees me wearing this sweater because it's cold out? Like there isn't that extra line of thinking happening for animals. So all they know is like, my body is telling me at this time, we usually go for an exercise. I want to exercise. I'm going to go sit by the door, wag my tail, bark, be irritating because I have all this energy and it needs to get out. So if you struggle to regulate your time, if you struggle with structure, something like getting into a routine with a pet is a really good idea because it can help regulate your time and structure it for you, which is really great. Fun little tip thrown in this song review. Not much for the chorus. If I was like actually a music person and not a therapist, I could maybe be like, this song's written in a fun time signature. I have no idea if it is. I don't know, stuff like that. I talk about Time by Pink Floyd being written in a weird time signature because Dave Gilmour's awesome. But like, that's just a fact I know. I don't actually know anything about music. So can't tell you if this is a compelling song or not from a musical perspective. Let's go, verse 2.
Never mind, I hit the snooze on my alarm 20 times, so I was just so tired. There was traffic, spilled my coffee, crashed my car, otherwise would have been here on time. Shoulda, coulda, wouldn't matter, ultimate alibi. You know it's a lie. There was a fire, metaphorically. Be there in 5, hyperbolically. Intentions only get you so far.
Um, I don't like this verse in the context of ADHD. I do think I like the little the backing vocals, throw it in metaphorically, hyperbolically. That was a fun little part of the song. Um, that's one of the things that I'm terrible about. When I'm running late, I always give people updates because I'm like, oh, I feel bad that I'm running late. I'm going to let them know so they can have realistic expectations, which is the thing that I talk about regularly. And I think is very important to have a happy, healthy life. So setting regular or realistic expectations is helpful. So I try and be an over communicator. If I'm running late, hey, coming in hot, be there in 5. But like, again, because I'm bad at time management, it's almost never 5 minutes. It's always like 7 or 8. And I'm going to shave that time off because in my head, I think that sounds better in the text or whatever I'm letting them know I'm running late by. But then, like, I'm late for what I said I was going to be for running late. So, again, it's a terrible system. This is not your brain working at like full speed, which is why people who are neurotypical also run late, also forget things. When we have enough stress, our executive functioning is diminished and less effective as well. So a person who's dealing with a lot of things or juggling a lot, let's say, planning to get married is always a good one. People go crazy when they're planning their weddings because like there's so many things, and your brain at some point has to start. Sorry, my dog's rolling around. Your brain has to start deciding like which resources to hold on to for which part of your brain. So which tasks need to get prioritized. Your brain does this automatically. And then you have the cognitive function where you're also deciding what you want to prioritize, but your brain's doing it for energy, for short-term or long-term memory, for different cognitive processes. Your brain is deciding automatically for you where to put things. So like some of that executive functioning, like where did I put my keys, or I put a cup of coffee in the microwave and started it and then forgot that I put it in there. Like those types of things will happen to everyday neurotypical people because when we're dealing with a high level of stress or we don't have the number of resources, we didn't get great sleep, we haven't been eating well, whatever it is, we don't have enough resources in our brain, that executive functioning could be one of those things that gets cut or not prioritized in a certain way. So I do think that's one of those things where like it's a bad habit, I think, for people who are struggling or running late to try and undersell how late they are or what's going on. I do think like lying about it doesn't help, especially if you're somebody who is neurodivergent. And this is the thing that I see a lot. It's a weird thing where I'm like, this is a medical condition, like your brain is just wired differently. Like people who have diabetes or need to take insulin aren't out here like lying about why they're taking their insulin shots. Like it's one of those, I don't know, like it's a weird thing where you're neurodivergent so people can't see it. I work with athletes a lot, and like the athlete who's injured and on crutches feels not better, but doesn't feel as bad as the person who has a concussion, because when you have a concussion, it's like no one can see that you're hurt. So you look healthy and everyone assumes you're healthy, and then they get mad at you that you're not playing, is what the injured athlete thinks. And that's not really true. But again, like being able to see some of these things. So like I think there are certain health conditions that because we can see them, we have more grace for them. Whereas something like being neurodivergent, you look like a regular person. I don't know what that means, like a regular person. You look healthy from an outward perspective in whatever way people are kind of deciding that, and then your brain's not working very well. So or it's not set up the same way. Our society is not set up for a neurodivergent brain, and so neurodivergent brain is going to struggle in certain things. Like, hey, time, social construct, it's just made up, right? We decided this is our best estimate, but like it's still not that good because we got like that extra day every year and whatever. Like we have these things so that society, civilization can function, but like time outside of like the sun rises and the sun sets like are not very natural things for us. Our body processes those things. Our circadian rhythm aligns with that, but like work starts at 8 a.m. Like that's just a made up thing. That's a social construct. It's hard for a brain that isn't wired for those things or is dysregulated to fire on that or to think that's useful or interesting information. It just isn't. So really talked myself into a rabbit hole here. My ADHD folks, don't lie. Don't make excuses. Just say you have ADHD. Just say you're neurodivergent. Like own that, because it helps set a more realistic expectation. There are ways to work on these things. If you're chronically late for work or whatever, like there are ways to work on these things. I work with this for a lot of adults on like they've learned how to navigate or manage a lot of their symptoms or a lot of things where there might be impairment where society's not set up for their brain. They've learned how to navigate that, but maybe like emotional regulation or being on time for something or being good with money or whatever it is. Like there are all these things that can pop up and people can still struggle with. So learning how to navigate some of those things, like that's what therapy is for. That's why I say I work with a lot of people who are neurodivergent, because I think having someone who has that personal experience and through all outward metrics is successful. I own my own business. I have 2 kids. I graduated with honors. I went to all these different schools, have all these different degrees, blah, 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 blah. Like I roll my eyes because none of that's meaningful to me because it wasn't hard, but it's also one of those things where it's like society looks at that and says, that's a successful person. And I'm like, yeah, but like I wasn't happy or healthy during that because my brain wasn't set up for the way that school is set up. So again, it's one of those things where we're kind of looking at like, not that there's a deficit, like attention deficit disorder. Yuck. That was when it was called ADD. So anyway, back on track. Let's go to the bridge, I assume. I do enough song reviews now to throw in words like that. I mean, like, I know I've listened to Paramore songs before. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Her voice sounds just super familiar. Can't just be like that song she did with Eminem, right? Anyway, yeah, so not much on the bridge there. Again, I think it's just one of those things where, like, when you're neurodivergent, I like the way that culture has come around to the idea. I like the way we're talking about it. I recommend that people own it and kind of put it out there to set realistic expectations, to help build their support system, to get their needs met, instead of having like guilt and shame about not meeting society's neurotypical expectations. Like, again, this idea that like the way we do money or the way we do time or like just how much bureaucracy is involved in everything is like nonsensical. That's made up bullshit. And so like the fact that we're all supposed to just go along with this made up bullshit, like the people who are neurodivergent are normally going to be less keen on that idea, because like if you're a top-down processor or versus a bottom-up processor, like most people who have neurodivergence, not most, a common thing in neurodivergence is being a top-down processor. So you want the whole of the view, you want all the information, you want to know the how and the what and the why. Like you want to know all of that before you take any action on something. So again, like, why do we do money that way? Like I tend to not to like dealing with money because I grew up poor, but also because I don't understand it. Like the concepts, the big picture concept does not make sense to me. Like, but we all know this is fake, right? Like, why is this important thing? Right? Like the people who own land, like landlords, that doesn't make sense though, right? Like it doesn't belong to them. So again, like culture, society, civilization is very neurotypical. It's set up around bureaucracy and kind of like type A thinking. And people who are neurodivergent can do structure. They benefit with structure. Their brain just doesn't do it on their own. So again, it's finding that balancing act. It's finding that sweet spot is how I talk about it, where we want to be able to be successful in what we are putting our minds to. We want to be not getting frustrated by not meeting other people's standards, but we also, unfortunately, I don't know, unfortunately maybe a little strong, we also have to exist in a society and a civilization. So we have to deal with being late. I hate being early. That was in the bridge. Like, what a new sensation being early. I just get bored then. Then I'm looking for dopamine hit. So I'm looking for something to eat or drink because food provides dopamine, or I'm getting up and walking around. I sit in my parent-teacher conferences for my kids' school and my foot starts tapping like it used to whenever I was in school, because like that's what happens when you're bored. Then your brain's looking for some sort of stimulation. I used to chew a lot of gum because like that was my a little bit of like flavor, but also like my body had something to do. So you'll hear about people who are neurodivergent talking about stimming. They're getting stimulation by movement. They're playing with their pens. When I'm doing virtual calls, spoiler alert to all my clients who do telehealth with me, I'm almost always playing with one of my hair ties. I just have one sitting right here. It's just kind of a fidgety thing. So it's like when my body can't move, and if my brain's not feeling as stimulated, then I get bored. And like it is less stimulated to do telehealth, for sure, because I'm missing a lot of the nonverbal cues. I only have a very limited range of movement. I have a very limited range of input. I'm just looking at the screen instead of taking in everything that's going on in the room. So it is definitely less stimulating to do telehealth. No offense to my telehealth peeps. Care about all of you. So yeah, that was Running Out of Time by Paramore and my neurodivergent take on being late for stuff. Like I said, I have a video on ADHD. If you're interested in checking that out, feel free. If you have a song that you would like me to review, I thought I was doing a current one, but apparently not. So I'm out of touch. I do Huey Lewis's "Hip to Be Square," I guess. That was a joke for those of you who are unfamiliar with Huey Lewis. Yeah. Thanks for stopping by the channel. Drop down, like, subscribe, do the YouTube things. Not because I'm trying to get YouTube famous, but it helps people find me. If they ever want to do work with me or coaching or therapy, then they can find my website and all that stuff. So like, subscribe, help the algorithm, help people find me, or drop down in the comments and give me an idea for something you want to see me review. Peace.